chapter 16. I'm going to begin reading at verse 19. Acts chapter 16, verse 19 reads as follows. And though wherever you are, if you would, please stand in the presence of the Lord that we might be able to receive his word as he speaks and uses me as a mouthpiece. Acts 16:19, beginning at 19 reads, when the owners of the slave girl realized that their hope of making money was gone, they seized Paul and Silas and dragged them into the marketplace to face the authorities. They brought them before the magistrates and said, these men are Jews and are throwing our city into an uproar by advocating customs unlawful for us Romans to accept or practice. The crowd joined in the attack against Paul and Silas, and the magistrates ordered them to be stripped and beaten. After they had been severely flogged, they were thrown into prison, and the jailer was commanded to guard them carefully. Upon receiving such orders, he put them in the inner cell and fastened their feet in the stocks. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and other prisoners were listening to them. Suddenly, there was such a violent earthquake that the foundations of the prison were shaken. At once all the prison doors flew open and everybody's chains came loose. The jailer woke up, and when he saw the prison doors open, he drew his sword and was about to kill himself because he thought the prisoners had escaped. But Paul shouted, don't harm yourself, we are all here. The jailer called for lights and rushed in and fell trembling before Paul and Silas. Then he brought them out and asked, sirs, what must I do to be saved? May the Lord add a blessing to the reading, hearing, and doing of his most holy word. Amen. For the grass fadeth, and the flower thereof withereth away, but the word of our God shall stand forever. I want to speak to you this moment, focusing on verse 30. Then he brought them out and asked, sirs, what must I do to be saved? As a title, I want to use these words, come out with your hands up. Come out with your hands up. When I was a little boy, me and some of my friends would play a game called Cops and Robbers. It wasn't a video game. It was back in the olden days when people would actually go outside and play games. And when we played this game, some of us were cops, and then others were robbers. And the robbers would stage an imaginary bank robbery. And then they would make their getaway, and then they would run out and go hide someplace. Now the cops would then have to go out, and then we would find them and then the objective was to capture them and then bring them to justice. But there was something that would happen every single time that we played the game of cops and robbers. There was always that one kid who would always want to be a robber, and then he would always run to the same place and hide. And whenever he ran, we always knew exactly where to run. You go and you run behind the neighbor's tool shed because you knew he was going to be there. When we go to the place, and of course he's there, we would surround him, those of us who were cops. We would surround him and pull out our imaginary bullhorns. And then we would talk like we were the police. And we would say, I know you're there. And we're in a position of overwhelming power. Your only means of escape is through us. So come out with your hands up. And at that point in time, y'all, really, when he was at that point in time, for that kid, the game was really over. He might as well just go on and raise his hands and surrender because he was already captured. He just had not been apprehended. He was already a prisoner. We just hadn't taken him into custody yet. Because he was just a prisoner behind the neighbor's tool shed because there was no place to run. There was no place to hide. He should have, he never did, but he should have just surrendered. But I tell you, it's hard. It's hard for us to get to the point of surrender. It's hard for us to accept the realization that we are not in control. Because whenever we think that we are in control, you got to understand this, that we are really just prisoners in our own situation. Amen. Let me explain it this way. Also, when I was a child, I wanted to have a pet monkey. I wanted a monkey, but Mama wouldn't let me have a monkey. When I got married, I still wanted a monkey. But my wife wouldn't let me get a monkey. Amen. The question is, in any case, how do you catch a monkey? Years later, I learned that there was a technique used by some to be able to catch monkeys where they would grow and live natively. And they said that what you had to do was take a coconut, and then with a chain, you connect the coconut to a tree. And then inside the hollow coconut with a small hole in it, you put something shiny. Put something shiny inside the coconut. Now, when the monkey comes and sees the coconut, he'll investigate. Then he'll look inside and he'll see that there's something shiny. He will reach his hand inside and grab the shiny object. But when he grabs it, he won't let go. And he can't take his hand out because he's trapped at this point in time. You see, the last thing that the monkey will do is let go. And his greed won't let him let go. His selfishness won't let him let go. His desire for gain won't let him let go. He would rather hold on and be a prisoner than to let go and be free. Don't you know that until we surrender to the lordship of God. Right. That we are just the same way. Yes. We would rather hold on and be a prisoner than to let go and be free. And we got to understand this, that regardless of how much you hold on, the Lord is still in control. Yes. It's his game. You got to play by his rules. So you might as well just let go and let God. Yes. But instead, if you give us something shiny, we have a hard time letting go of it. Give us a little gleam, and what our eyes see makes it hard to let go. Give us a whisper of some tender words, and what our ears hear make it hard for us to let go. Give us a little title and some responsibility, and what our egos feel makes it hard for us to let go. But understand that until you surrender, you will never be free. That's what the jailer in this text had to learn. Because you see, he was the guard. He was the guard, and as the guard, he held a shiny key. He had a shiny key, and because he held the key, he also had a sense of security in an insecure situation. He had a sense of security, but he was in an insecure situation. He was the God. And understand that the worst thing in that day and time that could happen to a guard is that a prisoner would escape. Because if the prisoner escapes, then the guard then would have to suffer the punishment that the prisoner would have had. But this key that he held gave him a sense of security. And he put his faith in the key. And he felt that as long as I'm the one holding the key, long as I'm holding this shiny key, everything's going to be all right. The prisoners will stay in place, my job will be secure, and life will be good. I just tell you that whenever your source of security is in anything that the world offers you, you are suffering from the greatest insecurity. Why? Because it's man-made. I chewed some gum one time, and Terry talked about it. It was Bubblicious bubble gum with strawberry. And I bit into it, and the flavor just burst, and it gave me goosebumps. And I chewed on that gum for 5 minutes, and all that juicy flavor was gone. But if you look on the side of the package, and you read in the ingredients, there's a line in there that says that it has artificial flavoring. Artificial flavoring is man-made flavoring. It's flavoring made by man, and if man made it, understand, it cannot last. And that's why I'm glad that we don't serve an artificial God. An artificial God should only give you some artificial hope. An artificial God can only give you some man-made artificial hope. But we serve an eternal and an everlasting God. So I can build my hopes on things eternal. I can hold to God's unchanging hand. But I still have to ask myself from time to time, self, how many times have I thought that I was holding the key? You see, there are some people who have respectable positions in the community. There are some people who have fine educations. There are some people who have fat bank accounts, who drive fancy cars, who wear nice clothes. But understand that all those things they think they have are just artificial flavoring. They're man-made and they won't last. They are destined to fade away. This jailer's security, his security was in a key. A key, his security was in the key's power to close doors that no man could open. But he was about to have an encounter with a God who can open doors that no man can shut. He was about to have an encounter with a God who stepped out of nowhere and created everything out of nothing. And that he, a God who was at a point where there was no way out, and a God who specializes in the impossible, who does his best work in the face of the impossible. Oh, yeah. And if you don't believe that, I wish that you could have seen Moses. When he and the children of Israel were being pursued by Pharaoh's army, and they found themselves trapped between the Red Sea and the mountains. Because if you had seen it, you would have seen God doing his thing in the face of the impossible. I wish you would have been there when the 3 Hebrew boys were thrown into the burning fiery furnace. Because if you would have been there, you would have seen God doing his thing in the face of the impossible. I wish you would have been there when Daniel was thrown into the den of lions. Yeah. Because if you would have been there, you would have seen God doing his thing right there in the face of the impossible. Because y'all, in the face of the impossible is where our God does his best work. This jailer held a key. And he had such a sense of security in an insecure situation. So much so that he fell asleep. While he was sleeping, Paul and Silas were praying and singing. Paul and Silas were singing and praying, praying and singing. They had been brutally beaten. Their backs were bloody. They were chained, but the text says that other prisoners heard them. Yeah. You know what that's called? Christian outreach. That's called witnessing. Has anybody ever noticed that your best witnessing comes when you are in the midst of a storm? Yeah. And the thing is, that how you respond to the storm can produce your greatest testimonies. Because people would much rather see a good sermon than to hear one. They know that talk is cheap. So they are watching you. They're watching you. They're watching you when you're in pain. They're watching you when you're treated unfairly. They're watching you when evil and wrong comes to you. Why are they watching you? Because they want to see what you're going to do. Yes. What you're going to do. Little boy was playing in the backyard and his mother was watching him out of the kitchen window. She saw he was doing something. She couldn't tell exactly what it was. And she walked out of the house and went into the backyard, and she saw that her son had taken a grasshopper and he pulled off the back legs. And she said, well, why do you do that? Why would you do that? And the little boy looked at her with this blank stare on his face, and he said, I just wanted to see what he would do. You know what it did? It just kept being a grasshopper. It couldn't hop the way that it had before, but it just kept on being a grasshopper. When you accuse yourself of being a Christian, when you accuse yourself of being born again, the rest of the world wants to know what you're going to do. And sometimes they'll pick and they'll poke at you, but if they do, just keep being a child of God. Sometimes they will shake you till your teeth rattle. But if they shake you, just keep being a child of God. Sometimes they will even try to do you physical harm. But if they do that, you just keep being a child of the living God. Because one glad morning, when this life is over, you're going to fly away. No matter how many times they poke at you, it lets me know you can't do nothing, because one day I'm going to fly away. And no matter how much you shake me, you can't do nothing to me, because one day I'm going to fly away. No matter how much harm you try to do to me, you can't do nothing, because one day I know I'm going to fly away. So church, I've got joy. I've got joy even in the midst of my storm. I've got joy. The world can spit in my face, but I still got joy. They can steal all my money, but I still got joy. They can burn down my house, but I still got joy. They can beat me down, but I've still got joy. Because the joy, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world can't take it away. And the unsaved in the world, they need to see that. And the thing is, they need to see that from you. Demonstrated as peace in the midst of your storm. The challenge that we have is they have to see it in you. That means that you have to be different. That means that you have to be different. We've been charged with being peculiar people. And what can be more peculiar than loving your enemies? What can be more peculiar than blessing them that curse you? What can be more peculiar than doing good to them that hate you? What can be more peculiar than praying for them who despitefully use you and persecute you? You see, Jesus is the light of the world. And when the world sees you, they should see the sun, the light of the S-O-N, reflecting off of you. So let your light so shine that men may see your good works, and it will cause them to glorify your Father which is in heaven. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm going to let it shine. So if you catch me loving my enemies, I'm all right. I'm just getting my shine on. If you catch me blessing the very one who curses me, don't worry about me. I'm just getting my shine on. If you find me take his own life. But Paul and Silas said, don't do it, because we're all here. And it was then that the jailer saw that there is in fact a reality in serving a true and a living God. And he came out saying, what must I do to be saved? And that phrase is the mark of an effective evangelistic outreach. That phrase is the mark of an effective and successful witnessing effort. You see, if I'm selling shoes, I want to hear you say, what size do you have these in? And if I'm selling cars, I want you to say, what color does it come in? But if I'm selling Jesus, then what I want to hear you say is, what must I do to be saved? So I can come out of the darkness and walk in his marvelous light. You got to come out. And when you come out with your hands up. He came out surrendering all to the power of God. He saw that he had been hidden behind a wall of sin. But if you're hidden behind a wall of sin, understand that God is always on the other side with his hands outstretched. Yeah. He's saying this, I know that you're there. Come out. Yeah. You tried it your way. Come out. I'm standing in a position of overwhelming power. Come out. I'm your only means of escape. Come out. I can make your rough edges smooth. Come out. I can wipe all the tears from your eyes. Come out. I've got a home for you in a land not made by man's hands. Come out. But when you come out, I need you to come out with your hands up. You see, raised hands are the universal sign of surrender. They say, I give up. I've tried it my way, but my way didn't work. So Lord, do what you want. I surrender, and I surrender all. And I don't know if you're in a storm right now. I don't know if you're on your way to a storm. But sometimes when you serve the Lord, you're going to have to suffer along the way. But understand that serving the Lord will pay off after a while. Sometimes when you serve the Lord, you're going to have to shed some tears in the midnight hour. But serving the Lord will pay off after a while. Sometimes when you serve the Lord, you might twist and turn all night long. But I just want to serve you. Notice that serving the Lord will pay off after a while. I'm told that one day in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus found himself in the midst of a storm. And he prayed, Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me, but not my will, but thy will be done. But the Lord replied, Son, your work is still not done. You're going to have to travel down this road a little bit further. And Jesus was delivered into the hands of sinful men. And they took my Jesus and they beat him till his body was raw strips of flesh. But his work was still not done. They placed a crown of thorns on his head and they mocked him all the way up Calvary's hill. But his work was still not done. They laid him on the cross and put nails in his hands. us. And we got to come out of our situation.